Welcome back, scholars, to the counselor's office. I'm Mr. Gaming Counselor. We're continuing on the pain train of recording for the week because I'm going to be very busy this week with a lot of editing. So we might as well get it out there while we can. Let's jump into it. Destiny 2 dev discussed challenges of removing time-gating in Revenant and keeping players engaged. Yeah, so if you have been living under a rock, they took feedback, years of feedback about time gating, and they said, hey, we're going to meet you about 10% of the way. We're making it to where all the content is released at the beginning of each act. So instead of waiting 3 weeks in between, you're going to wait 6 weeks, but you get it all in one act. Instead of having it all at once, which, again, there's never a good reason to hold your content back with time gating. There's just never a reason. You look at any other game, there may be some like weapon rotations or something. Like Warframe, they have like weekly rotations and you have to wait for that weapon to come in. But while you're waiting, there's still stuff to do while you're waiting for that specific rotation, right? So that's the thing. Like there's rotations, those exist. But this is straight up time gating saying you can't play the content that you paid for until like months later is a very shitty formula that people have hated for a very long time. And it's only gotten worse with episodes. Like it's just translate into a dumpster fire. So we're going to read this article and see what developers have said about this dumpster fire. Bungie talks about the challenges of removing time gating in Destiny 2's episode Revenant. Going forward, we're going to invest in as many areas of the game as we can. We are in the final days of Revenant. The Destiny 2 episode has brought plenty of surprises for fans, including the return of the D1-inspired fan-favorite activity, Prison Builders into Tomb Builders. Act 3 of Revenant launched earlier this month, adding a brand new exotic mission to the game, Kale's Fall. Alongside all this new content, Bungie has made a major gameplay shift, releasing all of an Act's content on day 1. Responding to long-standing player frustrations with time-gated progression, the decision marks a significant departure from Destiny 2's usual content rollout. And it has. It used to be every week there would be all the way up for like 6 weeks is what it was for regular seasons. You would have like 6 weeks of content. There'd be a couple of dead weeks at the end, and then the next season would start. Episodes gave us a lot more downtime, spreading out for like a month because they removed essentially a season. So instead of having 4 seasons, we went down to just 3. That didn't work out, so we're going back to 4 seasons this year. I don't know what that's really going to look like. We know that seasons are going to be free. Episodes are dead and gone. Good riddance. They're trash. I have little faith that it's going to do a better job than what we had in the past. But it's free, so you know what? At least if it's ass, you could say it's free. Historically, players have been required to log in on a weekly basis to experience the seasonal story content and quests. While this approach was designed to sustain engagement over time, it often left players feeling restricted. Now Bungie is testing the waters with this all-at-once model, letting players tackle the act at their own pace. It's a change that feels freeing, but not without its own set of challenges. Again, we're trying to make it sound like we get to enjoy all the content, but Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3 should be released all at once. It should just immediately release it, all of it. Just let people play at their own pace. If they want to choose to play it weekly on their own, then let them play. If people want to consume it all at once, let them consume it all at once. It's not that hard. People do that for real MMOs. Path to Exile has a new season. People are going to absorb all the content day 1 or day 2 or the week or spread it out, but they're going to continue to play the game. Like, how hard is it? Like Warframe puts out all the content. Sometimes they may have more content later on that they add, but the bulk of it is all out and open. I don't understand how hard it is to release all content for the season as a finished product instead of having to, here's this, here this, here this, here this. It makes me feel like they're waiting to see how bad the first chunk of the content is, and then they try to make tweaks to adjust to the player feedback, which you think is good, but at the same time, they've had years of player feedback for what they would like from the formula. If your cake is trash, nobody wants to eat it. In an interview with Game Radar Plus, the Destiny 2 opened up about the shift away from time gating and its ripple effect on player engagement. Senior design lead Tom Farnsworth explained how this new approach aligns with their goal to give players more agency. The challenging thing with the new model, Farnsworth shared, is that players have clear expectations about what things were in the past in terms of how they interact with vendors, or what the pacing is of the story, or the amount of content. And with the episodic model, there's Act 1, and it's all focused around Onslaught. Act 2 is all focused around Tomb of Elders, and Act 3 is focused around the exotic. And I think some players are going to appreciate that, and others are going to feel like they have small chunks to focus on initially versus having them all to play with later. No, what actually is happening is you have a small group of people who don't know how to self-regulate. They're the big fat Timmies in the basement who need someone to hold their hand and tell them, hey, I can't eat all of this at once because I don't know how to manage myself, and I'm going to complain if someone's not holding my hand. While other people want to eat all their food at once or knows how to self-regulate themselves, and they just want to be able to choose how they play. Maybe one day they play it for a couple hours, the next day they want to binge play. It's the same thing for like Netflix series. Most people would rather have the series all at once and versus having to wait weeks and weeks. Well, some people still do that. There's definitely some people, if the content's good, here's the thing. If the content's good, people will come back. That's the thing. The quality. We're talking about quality, right? People will come back. Like same thing with Netflix movies or shows. People will come back the next week if the show is good. Even though we're talking about a video game and the rate at which people consume shows versus video games is drastically different, but the comparison is still the same. Bungie's goal is to strike a delicate balance, offering content that fills substantially without overwhelming players or burning through the gameplay calendar too quickly. Farnsworth noted the broader difficulty of live service games, saying live service gameplay models are literally one of the hardest challenges. What's the right way to give players what they want and let them have agency of experience while also finding what you were saying about the sustained path forward? Here's the thing. The gameplay calendar too quickly. Again, that's a you issue. I don't know any other live service game that time gates majority of the content. Giving players agency is letting all the content be out. Let me play. If all 3 acts are just out in the public and we can play at our own rate, play the story at our own rate, then let us. That's true agency. This is not agency. Hell, even Black Ops, they release majority of the content in their season. They release the new maps, and then later they might release more maps, and they might even release zombies, but a bulk of it is released at the season. Granted, this is now 1-for-1. We could continue to point out like actual free live service games. Fortnite releases all the content at once. May have some extra side stuff like the Godzilla event, like that's coming in later. But the majority of the actual season is out and ready for you to play. It's crazy to me that they're like, hey, we're listening to you. Like they're skirting around it saying, hey, we're listening to you. We're trying to give you what you want, but you're not actually listening. You're not listening to the words that are coming out of the players' mouths. They want to play the content at their own rate, not what you dictated. Just because, like, they're telling the truth. Like if you see, it says how without overwhelming the players or burning through the gameplay calendar too quickly. You're not overwhelming the players. If they are actively participating in the season and they kick off the quest, they're following a diagonal line. Or they're a single flat line. It's not like you have choices to go off in different directions. The quest line is very 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like there's no confusion about this. How are you going to overwhelm? What overwhelms players is when they start the game and they get 30 pop-ups. That's what overwhelms players. Again, it's using its mental word gymnastics. Or we're trying to skirt the real problem and try to say that we're trying to solve the problem, but we're really not. And it's also very deceitful because it implies that players are incompetent. They're not able to figure out how to do the seasonal content if you release it all at once, and that they're also not capable of regulating themselves. But some people aren't, granted. But it's just a false positive is what I like to call it. It's a false positive. One key concern is that the players might exhaust all the new content too quickly and lose interest until the next episode. Farnsworth stressed the importance of diversifying gameplay options to avoid this pitfall. You can't have one part of the game bear all the weight of someone's engagement. He said, if everyone's time is only focused on the episode and not playing the core game, or other aspects of the release, they're going to feel like they're going to eat everything and be done, which is what happens every season. Which is funny because PvP players have been begging for new maps. They've been begging for updates. They've been begging for cheaters to be tackled. So it's funny that they're willing to admit that, hey, we need to focus on other parts of the game, but they're not doing it. And why is it coming to Revenant falling apart, like the player count? What? Again, why is it when the game is dying and becoming historically low for like the player population that Bungie decides, hey, we should probably do something? So I know going forward, we're going to be investing in as many areas of the game as we can to make sure the players have something to do for each mood that they're in. Whether they want to engage with the story, or they want to engage with an exotic mission, or they want to play core game, they want to play PvP, and I think that's a challenge. Make sure that if players feel like they're gobbled up everything somewhere, they've got somewhere else they can hop over to. Again, you're saying one thing, and you've had this. It's not like this is the first example of like, oh wow, we've never experienced this before. We've been begging for them to focus on core playlists. Hell, when they do updates like the Guard and Salvation and they add red borders and they update the loot, people get excited and go for that. Imagine if they actually update the loot for across the game. They introduce new loot. Like, and that's a quick, simple fix. Granted, half the loot in the game, armor, is pointless. You have a god roll set, you don't care. And I still think that's going to be a problem because people are going to get their sets and then they're going to have to be back to square one. Okay, you did armor 2.0. Well, they spent all their time. They farmed up the perfect gear. They got the set bonuses or whatever they want. Now, there's no reason to care. You're back to square one. You put on paint, and now the new paint is already rusting because you didn't really fix the problem. Destiny 2's narrative lead, Jerome Vernich, added, this in some way is a good problem to have because this is only a problem if your cake tastes good, right? If your cake is trash, nobody wants to eat it, and it's not a discussion at all. If you've seen the player count, I would say your cake is pretty trash right now. Looking ahead, Bungie has already outlined its plan for Heresy, the next episode launching February 4th, 2025. The team is sticking with its no time gate approach, but tweaking the rollout schedule to minimize downtime. Bungie promises that the vast majority of the activity content will be available on the first day of an act, and subsequent weeks will add or evolve the content based on the story. Again, I don't understand. People don't want time-gated story. Just let people play it out. Like, even Fortnite does kind of do this. Like, their story is caked into the game, and so it does, as you play, there's weekly like updates to the story. But it's also a battle freaking royale. Like, the story isn't like the core aspect of this free-to-play game. People paid for this content. And what's even worse is, like, people paid for this content, and you're forcing them, like, for instance, if Act 1 comes out and they only have time to play in the month or weeks of Act 1, and then in the prior months, something happens and they can't play as much, maybe their work, a change of shift or something, they would like to play all the story beats ahead of time so that when they go away or they have to leave or something comes up, they don't feel stressed out that they wasted their time, they're wasted their money. Because the story beats just disappear. And I know that's like a really bad example because it's still going to be there for at least another, for Heresy. Heresy will stick around, so the episode 1 and 2 will still be there. But in what, I don't know like how Heresy is going to play out. Like at the end of Heresy, is all the previous episodes going to disappear like seasonal content has? Like how much of the story is going to stay? Like that's kind of another big thing. Is like these are big core story beats that they're trying to wrap up. So are they going to keep episodes around? Like I would think they should, so people can continue to play them out. As long as you bought it, you should be able to keep it, and all the things should stay in the game. But I'm not Bungie. They have not specified what's staying, what's going, what you should work on, and we can assume based on historical context that at the end of the life cycle of the season or episodes, all of it will disappear. So someone who's coming into Heresy and they bought the annual pass, they want to play the content. Sure, they can play episode 1 and 2, but they can't play episode 3 at the rate that they want because they still have to be time gated. It feels really bad. It almost feels like there's no reason to play Destiny at the beginning of the year cycle. It's better to wait to the end to then buy it and then play catch up. And by the time you catch up, maybe all the Act 3 or the Episode 3 content will be out. Like, it's just really weird. It's ass backwards that instead of encouraging people to buy the content as it's released, it's better to just wait because you're not going to be able to even play with the content that you paid for. Like, that's the part that's stupid. You can't even play the content you paid for. You have to wait weeks to a month later to fucking get access to it. That's the part that people don't fucking understand. I give you my money, let me play the fucking game. It's stupid. Anyways, that's my thoughts. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. Hit the like button, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel as always.